to carry on. Open your heart, set your mind at ease. Live your life and you'll be free. We're gonna rise, rise, rise. Keep on rising, rise, rise, rise. Keep on rising, rise, rise.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Toon review for tonight's Crystal Palace versus Newcastle United match preview, which, of course, kicks off at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon at Selhurst Park. Another trip for the Newcastle fans down to London, of course. So we'll take a look at Palace. We'll take a look at how they're doing. We'll look at Newcastle. We'll try and put a side together and see what we can come up with tonight and see if Eddie Howe might change things after the debacle of the West Ham game. All that to come. But as usual, if you do enjoy the show, please hit that like button. And if you are new and you like what you see, please do subscribe. It is completely free to do so. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload or a live show. And of course, the usual two ways to support the channel. First of all is membership, which is the join button just underneath me and Alex. We've got some great prizes coming up on TTR Friday tomorrow, so you have to be a member to be in it. And of course, super chats are available, which is the $ underneath the live chat, and that will guarantee your comment to be read out on the show. And of course, a massive thank you to our channel sponsor, Mamaroo Records, based in Whitley Bay. So if you're ever around there, please go and check them out. They're right in the middle. Go and see Steve, and he will give you a fantastic deal on music, merchandise, vinyl. There's sports merchandise there as well. Steve's putting together a list of what he's got available apart from music as well. So lots to come from Mamaroo Records. Did I just say Mamamoo? I mean Mamaroo. I do apologize. And obviously, if you can't get into the store, their link is pinned at the top of the description, as is our second channel, our sister channel, TTR Xtra. There has been a video launched on there today. I did a Premier League preview video, which has had some really good feedback. So if you're not already subscribed, please click the link in the description at the top there and go and subscribe. We are less than 130 away from 1,000 subscribers already, which is quite incredible considering there is only one video on there. But that is a football channel for loads of different commentaries and across the world. So looking forward to more stuff coming up on there. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening. How are we doing?
We are all right. Now, tonight I am putting you in charge of a poll. We're going to have a poll tonight, but I have no idea what to ask. So what would you like to ask the viewers tonight on a poll, Alex?
Ooh, give me a couple of minutes, do some comments, and I'll have a little think.
Yeah, because it's got to be something to do with the game. So we need the viewers to have a poll on something. Now, of course, injury-wise, it looks like Bruno and Joe Willock will be fit. However, the problem we have there is Bruno isn't in any training photos, but we've seen this before from Eddie Howe quite a few times. When a player is doubtful, he leaves them out of the photos in training just so, well, he can surprise the manager of the opposition. Joe Willock was pictured in the training photos, so he is training, but obviously we'll hear more from Eddie Howe in the press conference tomorrow as to what's going on. Very interesting interview with Callum Wilson, which I touched on in the news show earlier on today, Alex, saying that he's kind of played down partnering up with Alexander Isak. He thinks it's one or the other mainly, and he'll only pair them together when the manager sees really necessary to do so.
Well, judging by where we are in the table and how things have been a bit up and down recently, then
absolutely.
I mean, whether it's play with two strikers or do something, he's got to do something, because at the moment it's you know, we're doing the same thing and expecting different results, and it's not working.
It's not. Stevie says, yeah, I've got your email, matey. I didn't get your original email. That's why it never got sent with the prizes when I sent them out. So I've got that one, buddy. So I'll be sending that probably on Monday for you. So expect that early next week, bud. Wacky says, the energy display Paul displayed on TDR Extra channel was superb. Well, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Really want to get that up. David says, Alex's poll, would we love Maxi to return this winter? That's not going to be what the poll is, even if Alex says so. Tonali has to start on Saturday, says Pete. Dan said, I'd rest Bruno, at least have him on the bench. Andy says, Paul, how many will we get beat by? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Well, I like your confidence, Andy. Indeed. What's the poll then, Alex? Come on then.
I really don't know. There's so many things we could do. I mean, potential team changes, subs. Well, not subs, just people coming into the starting 11. Well, okay, it's
in what I'm thinking of, mate. To be honest,
I'm thinking of just a complete reshuffle and refresh of the lineup with a week of training and bringing players like Barnes, Tonali, Wilson, even possibly Miggy/Murphy in, just to mix up the lineup, a fresh week of training to try and make something else happen. Because
so would you make numerous changes to the lineup? Yeah, to the starting 11.
Yeah. I think when we say numerous changes, I'm thinking 3 or 4 changes to the first 11 minimum. Maybe even Miley in the conversation, Tonali, Miggy or Murphy, Barnes on the left. Just maybe get Trippier back involved somehow. Just maybe shake things up as much as possible. So big changes. Do we tweak like one player, or do we need some wholesale changes? Because at the moment we're just trying to be a battering ram, running out of steam if we don't score. We just get, it's basically what happened against Brighton has just happened again against West Ham. So we've got to do something else.
Okay, well, we'll do the first one, which is, would you make numerous changes? And then I'm going to ask the viewers, would you stick with 4-3-3 or would you like to see a 4-4-2?
I don't think that really matters too much. I think people go into formations far too.
Well,
I think it's formations are not what everybody thinks they are. It's not like FIFA.
It's not the be all and end all. Definitely not.
It's very fluid and flexible anyway. We play a lot of 4-4-2 with the players we were using anyway, with Willock going and joining Isak in build up. So it's it's kind of whatever you write down as your starting shape on paper is kind of irrelevant nowadays, because you enter 5 or 6 different shapes, and depending on the phase of the game, and sometimes we defend in a 4-5-1, a 5-4-1. Depends if it's in the middle of the pitch, if we're higher up, if we're going to drop deeper. And then when we're building up, it might be Willock next to Isak in a 4-4-2. It might be a 4-3-3. Like, there's so many different shapes you see anyway in formations. It's kind of irrelevant nowadays.
Yep. Shieldsy says, I think the team lacks creativity. I'd love us to try and buy Cunha if Wolves go down.
That's a great shout. I very much agree with that. I think Matheus Cunha is massively underrated.
Yeah. Laura says she could see a draw on Saturday. Trevor, Crystal Palace being crap at the back, we should win, but Eddie again may cost us. Well, we said that on Monday. And this time it's away from home as well. So there's no guarantees anymore, certainly with Newcastle United. That's a certainty. Jesus, I might stir the pot a little here, but me personally, I would sell Willock and Barnes and use that money to bolster the attacking right side. Hartwell thinks we'll lose at 2-0. Peter says, let's hope the players don't look like they've been smoking a joint before the game. Well, yeah. Asif says, never change a winning team. After the loss, he will change it, guaranteed. Claire says she's coming round to selling Barnes. I don't think they'll sell Barnes, Alex. I think they've made an initial outlay on Harvey Barnes. And listen, Harvey Barnes is one of the best finishers at our club as far as I'm concerned. He just, it was a strange signing when we made it because we just brought Gordon in. Obviously, we spoke about that many times. But I'd like Harvey to play on Saturday because I think he did well when he came on at halftime. in the previous game against West Ham. And I think we need more creativity up front. And without the creative players on the pitch, we're not going to do that.
So with Harvey Barnes. Anybody who's outside of that bracket for me of if it's Isak, Bruno, Gordon, Botman, anybody outside of that list, maybe Tonali as well, I'm open. I don't mind. If there's bids come in, I think we should always negotiate and look into the idea. Probably not Tino and Hall as well, because they're the future for fullbacks. So, the core 4 superstars and then the 2 young fullbacks, generally untouchable. I think everybody else, we need to be realistic and entertain transfers. I'm not saying I want to sell Barnes or Willock, and either of them need to go. But I think at this point, with everything that's going on with PSR and transfers, we need to be really smart with our business. I think we need to be a bit more ruthless, because we're so nicey, and Callum Wilson's come out and says, "Oh, he wants to stay and fight for the club, and he's given so much when we weren't as good." Yeah, okay. Yeah, we agree with that, and we really appreciate that, as is every player who's pulled their weight over the years. But we can't be nicey to everyone, or it's going to hurt the club. So we've got to be stronger in our decision making with these kinds of things. It's not personal. And in regards to the finishing, you're absolutely spot on. We need one player with a bit more of an interesting eye for a pass, or that deadly strike, because it's too predictable in build up at the moment. Even though we're creating lots of chances, they're quite timid chances. We're rarely challenging the goalkeeper. They're easy to swat away. But Barnes, I agree, needs to be involved somehow, whether it's as a sub or in the game, because he always gets off 2 or 3 dangerous shots a game in decent positions, good goal scoring record. And right now we need goals to win games. So right now, it's a no-brainer that he's got to be involved to some capacity.
By the way, you mentioned there about PSR, etc. Did you see that thing about Manchester United's finances compared to Newcastle?
Charlie Bennett's post.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good. We like Charlie. It was a good post.
It was
a lot of Man United fans commented on that. For people who haven't seen it, I mean, I'll find it in a minute if you want to carry on. It's easy to show people.
Lawrence says Murphy and Almiron should be sold before Barnes. Mark says, I think we will come back with a bang and win 3-0. There's definitely a place in the squad for Barnes, says Kevin. Miggy plus 30 million for Mbeumo. I think we still have to pay a bit more cash for Mbeumo than just Miggy to knock it down to 30. 100%. Change is definitely something personnel different, as we are the same game in, game out. Barnes has the rest of the season for me, but needs to seriously up his impact. That's harsh. There you go. So look at that. I mean, how, if you're not annoyed by that, Alex, then, you have to be somewhere else on the planet as far as I'm concerned, because you look at that and we are having to sell because of PSR, and you look at the differences there. It stinks to high heaven. 714 million pounds worth of debt, 113.4 million pounds of annual losses, and an owner has a net worth of 18 billion. Now, Newcastle United, not in debt, annual loss of 73.4 million, so it's less than Manchester United, and our owners are worth 738 billion pounds. But we have to sell. How is that in any walk of life fair? It's just not.
I completely agree. There's a lot of Man United fans in the comments saying, but we've struggled with PSR. We had to sell McTominay to comply, and boo-hoo. Booty-hoo-hoo, absolutely do not care. You've had PSR losses written off due to, was it mitigating circumstances to do with lawyer fees with
something like that they got away with,
kind of takeover nonsense. Just nonsense. They've written off millions for him. Was it like 30, 50 million? I mean, I can't remember the exact figures, so no, Man United fans, don't come for me, but well, do what you want, bring it, because your club's trash, and I'm afraid the rules are written for you and you alone, because our club is in no danger of having financial trouble. Yours is awful. It's operating under 714 million pounds of debt, which is what, 20 20 times less than the value than what the owners have got net worth wise. So it's not inconceivable that could go wrong. I appreciate the annual revenue is super high, but that it's ridiculous. Again, arbitrary lines in sand drawn to suit certain clubs. In theory, if you go into an alternate universe and tell people who have never heard of our teams to write the rules based on that, they would punish Man United, not us. It's bizarre. It's completely bizarre.
Mr. Matthews says Gordon needs dropping. He has done sweet FA all season, part 2 games. Longstaff needs dropping. What is the point in having Tonali to keep him on the bench? Give Barnes a start, for fuck's sake, one of our top scorers. That's not the only comment I've seen asking, about addressing Anthony Gordon, and maybe he shouldn't just be able to walk straight into the team. I don't think he's been as powerful this season. There has been reasons for that, though, as me and Billy talked about the other day. Moving positions constantly, even during the game. He's not really in a settled position at the minute because Eddie can't find that kind of balance. We thought we found it with him on the right and Joe Linton and Willock. That then disappeared against West Ham. So I'm not so sure. What about Anthony Gordon, Alex? I mean, we talk about needing our big players to perform. He's one of them. We need him.
Too risky for Eddie Howe right now in the predicament that we're in. It's a very wishy-washy season. The season is on a knife edge right now. If we can go on a decent run, we look really healthy. Could challenge for European places, Brentford in the cup, get into January. Or we don't pick up many points and the season's at real danger of petering out. So it is a knife edge. So decisions like that are really risky for the manager, because if we had a competent right winger, well, okay, that's really harsh. Miggy and Murphy are competent right wingers, but when we're looking at, we want to do a top 6 push again. They're not. I don't think they're at the level for that, which is, I think, is fair to say. For people who like Miggy and Murphy, I like them as well, but we want to finish top 6 at least. So if we had somebody better than that, we could drop Gordon. I don't think we can drop Gordon. I don't think we've got the personnel and the quality. Even if you put Barnes on the left and even Wilson up front, if you want to massively shake everything up, I don't think he's ready to start yet, by the way. Who goes on the right? There's nobody good enough to drop Anthony Gordon for. It's just not. He's not droppable. He's undroppable right now because there's not enough quality to challenge him for it. A bad Gordon is still better than a good Miggy or Murphy.
But if you're talking about the left-hand side there, like Brian's saying, thought our aim was to have good cover in each position. You've got Gordon and Barnes. Keep him. Is Joe Linton an option on the right-hand side, and maybe take Gordon out the firing line for a game or two? But
Square pegs in round holes.
Well, it is, but I'm just thinking from a devil's advocate point of view. I don't think I agree with you. I don't think we can drop him.
Too risky for the manager. If we play Palace and drop Gordon and put Joe Linton on the right, and we lose that game, he's going to get crucified. He wouldn't do that. Too risky. It's not going to happen.
Phoenix Pork Pie keeps asking you to pick your team, Alex. We do that at the end, mate. We put a graphic up, and Alex normally puts his team, and then we have a bit of a play around with it. Ricky says, Paul and Alex, if we were guaranteed Wilson for a full season, would you sell Isak for 100 million? I defo would. Proven suits the Premier League and physically stronger. Yeah, but the problem is it's a very hypothetical question because, guaranteeing Wilson to be fit for a full season, when was the last time that happened? You can't take a risk like that. You just.
But then his contract's up as well, isn't it? So in your hypothetical scenario that you've just created, we would get to the end of this year and have nobody up front. We'd have Osula and that'd be it. So then we'd have the Isak money and a bit of salary wiggle. So then we'd have to go and buy 2 new strikers. And that we've got to get the recruitment right, which is risky. Whereas I think we've already got the recruitment right with Isak. We just need to find a long-term Wilson replacement, somebody to challenge Isak.
Yeah. Andy Ford says, can we discuss dropping Gordon, please? Controversial, but does he really justify a starting spot right now? Well, we've just discussed that. George says, win or not, it's all down to what the PIF are prepared to put up with. We should be more consistent than this. Well, Eddie's mentioned that in a few press conferences, hasn't he? I mean, about the consistency and about how that needs to be put right. And I'm sure, look, Eddie will be hurting from Monday because I'm sure Eddie Howe in his own mind would have thought the way we'd been playing in the build-up to this, Eddie would have thought, yeah, this game, we go out there, we perform again the same way that we've been doing. We'll pick up 3 points. It didn't work like that, obviously. Was the international break to blame for that? Did it just break up our momentum a little bit? You could possibly look at it that way. But he'll be hurting, and he will want to stop this inconsistency from happening because it's affecting us, obviously, in our league position. And the league position we want to be in is without a doubt in the top 6 and eventually top 4. But yes, we're close points-wise this season, but performance-wise, there is a huge gulf. And teams are going to come into form, start grabbing points and pulling away. And we have to be making sure that we don't get left adrift and have a fight on at the end of the season for any sort of European place. Nick Thornton, thank you for your super chat. Gordon was player of the year. Then the club hawked him around to sell. And now the genius that is Eddie has changed his position multiple times. So he's putting Gordon's form down to... very much down to Eddie Howe. Andy says the Rubens are worth 50 million alone before you even factor in PIF. Yeah, I mean PIF just have a pot of money that never ends. That's basically how that is. Archie, no. That's an astounding comment, to be honest. Gordon has always moved around. No wonder he can't settle this season, says Niall. Everyone could see last season in the left wing, he was our player of the year. Do you think it is because he's been moved around a lot, Alex?
Well, he's come out in interviews and said that he's not bothered. He'll play wherever. He's not overly fussed.
Yeah.
I don't think it helps. I think it's a lot of tactical changes. It's Eddie Howe demands a lot of his players tactically and just football smarts, if that makes any sense. Just having so much awareness of what to do in multiple situations, defensive transitions, when to double up and help somebody, when to press. There's a lot of different things he demands of you. And it's difficult. Last game he put Gordon left, he put Gordon right, he puts him up front, he puts him sort of deep, trying to knit play together. He's asking him to do 4 different roles in the same game. He's still young. He's still 23 years old. Even 23. I think he's 23 years old. It's difficult for him. We could do with some other players to take the load off players like Isak and Gordon. Because they're expected to do a bit of everything, and we do need somebody a little bit more creative. Again, we need maybe some goals from midfield. We need some goals from corners and free kicks. They need to share the load as a team. This is what was happening 2 years ago, is we were getting goals from absolutely everywhere. Trippier had 10 assists probably closer to 7 or 8 assists by this time last year. We've not got someone like that at the moment. We need other players to pick it up. Let's say every game we've played so far this season, if centre halves have chipped in with a couple of goals extra and maybe have a couple more goals from midfield, that's 4 extra goals. That could translate to many more points, and all of a sudden we're looking at the table a lot more favourably. So we just need to be a bit more clinical in other areas.
Cockeyed Cyclops says, happy Thanksgiving, good peeps. Yes, happy Thanksgiving to all our American viewers. Hope you're having a wonderful day so far. I know you're a few hours behind us over there across the sea, but enjoy your food tonight, because I know you like a good Thanksgiving meal. Nah, I shouldn't talk about that. Chicken in. Do they have turkey on Thanksgiving? It is, isn't it? Well, I prefer chicken, to be honest. I Like Coffee says, I think I've been Murfinho's biggest fan, but even I think we need to start moving on. Wow. Frieden81 says, I think Gordon sucks every time he starts. There's a lot of fans, a lot of viewers making comments about Gordon. Atticus says, Paul, I thought your Premier League preview on TDR Xtra was superb. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. Kevin says, Wilson, full season, maybe when he was 15. Yeah. It's been a long time. Right. Have we got some graphics, Alex?
We have. I wanted to start somewhere else, though, today.
Yeah, okay.
Which is just players, how they're getting on so far this season in terms of the data, to kind of go some way to explaining what's happening. Gordon with 2 goals and I'd like to bring your attention to the fact he's got 4 XG. So based on the quality of chances he's had to take shots in, he should have on average scored 4 goals from those positions, and he's only scored 2. Likewise, he should have had a couple of assists, and he's only got 1. So that's potentially a 3-goal swing there, just off one player. Similarly, Alexander Isak, 4 goals, 5 XG, should ideally have another goal as well. You've got Murphy, who's played 500 minutes so far in the Premier League with no goals from 0.3 XG. You've got Miggy, who's contributed 100 minutes. So he's come on in bits, sub appearances and stuff. Nothing either contributed. Again, we are lacking a lot up front. So that right-hand side is not giving us anything at all. And then our striker and left wing, it tends to be underperforming XG-wise. I mean, I've not even checked Barnes. I would imagine Barnes is pretty clinical. He's probably
I think Miggy's finished at Newcastle, Alex. I mean, there was confirmation that Newcastle, certainly from the journalistic point of view, have said today that he's not in Eddie's plans, and Newcastle have given the green light for a move in the winter window. So, yeah.
So Barnes, as predicted, because he is hyperclinical, actually has way more goals than his XG because he's a clinical finisher. So he's got 4 goals this season from only 2.3 XG because he only does worldies generally. So Barnes is fine. Isak and Gordon underperforming what they should do in terms of goal output, and then we're not getting anything from the right-hand side at all, really. 2 assists from Murphy, and then that's it from Miggy and Murphy as a total. There's 2 assists. Nothing more. And then when you factor in obviously the midfield and centre halves and things, we're just not getting enough at all. And I have gone and found an XG table as well, just to kind of show
just before you do that, Alex, I just want to quickly bring up this comment from Nick. It's not the Tavernier that was previously with us. It's the other one at Bournemouth. The Tavernier that was with us is now at Rangers. This is the Bournemouth player.
This Tavernier was with us in the youth academy.
In the youth setup, yeah.
When he was like 14.
Yeah.
Both of them have played for us, but this is a different one, like Paul says.
Nick Thornton, thank you for your super chat. Howe was happy with Miggy and Murphy. It's comical. And super chat from Peter Garthwaite. These rumours, Howe has the backing of the board and will be giving money in January. How long do you think Eddie should be given to turn it around? I think he's got all season. I really do. I think that'll happen at the end of the season. We can talk about it then once we know where we finished. Sorry, mate. Go on then.
So it's just a quick look at what the XG table looks like for this season. So obviously this is us in 10th. And this, if I need to scroll to the top to kind of see what we're looking at. So this is our XG here, this figure, if I highlight it. So that's our expected goals. So we are overperforming it, surprisingly. We've scored 13 and we were supposed to have, underperforming it, wrong word. So we should have scored 17 and a half, close to 18 goals based on the chances we've produced. And we were only on 13. So not good. That being said, we are actually expected goals against. We're doing better than we should. So we should have conceded generally about 19 goals based on the chances we've given up to the opposition. We've only conceded 13. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Like, we should be scoring more, but we've actually not conceded as many. And when we have conceded, it's not been a lot. It was 1 against Brighton, 1 against City, 1 against Bournemouth. We've kept the score lines generally. If we've messed up, it's been a goal-ish, apart from obviously like the West Ham game and that one a little bit different. Points wise, we expected points is 16, so we should actually have less than we've got according to the data. So we're doing quite well according to statistics. So something that Eddie's team will track 100%. They will be looking at things like this over the long term. If we look at Palace, they are 19th in the league, so this is their actual league position down in 19th. They have scored 10 goals and conceded 17 goals. In terms of how that's supposed to be, they've actually put up an XG of 17, basically the same as us, but they've only scored 10. So they cannot hit a barn door at all. They should be on 17 goals. Well, of course things change against us.
Oh, well, of course, yes. Let's hope
But
not.
they are doing a little bit better defensively than they're supposed to be doing. They've conceded 17 goals, but they could have given up 23 based on that data.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, a lot of our goals as well have been, John Adams has said it in the chat there, poor mistakes. Just simple, we say it many times with Newcastle United's defence, don't we? Just the switch off for that brief second. And in the Premier League, a brief second is all it takes to concede a goal. And we've done that too many times this season.
we have. There's been a lot of goals that we could stop. The Brighton goal is one example of Fabian Schär being switched on. Lloyd Kelly defending a corner against West Ham. There's been a few that were definitely preventable. It wasn't just outrageous skill from the opposition. So we've got no predicted lineups from SofaScore at the moment. But this is Crystal Palace. Oh, it's just decided to reload the page. Sorry, everyone. Scroll back down. This is Crystal Palace so far this season. Recent weeks anyway. So the last wins were against Villa in the Cup. I would imagine that was a rotated side for both. No, it was actually a very strong Villa side. And a very strong Palace side. They put out the big guns, both of them. Yep. Fair enough. They managed to get a win against Villa away. They did manage to beat Tottenham at Selhurst Park as well at home. And they went with, much of a muchness. So let's have a look at recent lineups and who is available. So this was their most recent game, a 2-2
Apparently they played really
Villa.
well at Villa last week. So,
well, decent ratings, 2 goals away at Villa. Villa are obviously a good side. They're having to do a lot of rotation with Champions League. But on paper, really, really nice side. Obviously, there's a glaring hole in there where Elise's left. Is Eze injured?
Eze wasn't in that team either. I don't know.
I'm not sure if he's injured. We can have a little look. These are the suggested injuries. So Crystal Palace versus Newcastle, injured and suspended players. So they're under the impression that Bruno's not going to play in this game, but I have a sneaky suspicion he will. So there's Kamada is injured. He's a decent player. Adam Wharton apparently. Again, stuff that says early December.
We are. We're at the end of it's literally the last day of November on Saturday, isn't it? So you could genuinely say that quite a few of those players could be available this weekend. Yeah,
Mateusz Franca as well as I Like Coffee mentions. Yeah, we have reviewed him in several transfer shows before he moved to England. He's not really done anything for Palace yet, so maybe dodged the bullet there, but I think he'll be fine in the future. So yeah, if Eze's injured, that's great for us because that's one thing we haven't got to worry about is a trickster. Adam Wharton as well is a fantastic midfielder, so that's one less thing to worry about. But this is kind of how they're playing at the moment. Will Hughes, obviously, super experienced, but he's getting on a bit now. He's not quite got the silky technical ability of Adam Wharton. You know, Will Hughes was meant to be that guy and never progressed into that guy. You know, the midfield of England years ago was meant to be Jack Rodwell, Jack Wilshere, and Will Hughes. They were meant to be the guys to go and be England's next midfield. And
which is why you never put money on that.
None of it happened. They all went and played for Watford and teams like that. No offense, Watford.
Norvik, thank you for being a member for 35 months on the channel. He says, what's the betting? What's the betting we will be rating Bournemouth in the January window? Sorry, I'll carry on.
Good odds for that one.
Yeah, very good odds.
So how are they playing? A little bit different to what we played Palace a lot in the last couple of years. I feel like we play them more than other teams. I don't know why. It's the Palace game seems to come around really quickly. We are used to some of the players. Daniel Munoz always gives us a bit of a tough time. He's a decent player. Tyreek Mitchell as well. Mark Gahey. Czech Decore is always quite annoying. Jean-Philippe Mateta is quite frustrating to play against. Ismail Assar, we've played against him. We've played against him, but when he's been at different teams. New additions this season is, of course, Maxence Lecroix, the centre-half who we did many transfer shows on, who eventually went to Crystal Palace, and Trevor Chalobah as well, who we
were linked with as well.
Wanted on loan.
Yeah,
and
we were linked with him.
He went to Palace. So a little bit different. They look like they're still trying to play the same kind of way as they did at the back end of last year. They've got the 3 centre halves. They've got the aggressive fullbacks, wing backs, solid midfield. two kind of narrow inside forwards in behind the striker, and Mateta is just the absolute battering ram. It's very similar. It is very similar.
Yep.
And of course, I don't know how we're supposed to say his surname. Justin Devaney. We'll go with Justin.
He's highly rated. Of course, he scored against Villa, didn't he? So,
well, both of the two behind the striker scored. So that's scary because they're both confident.
Indeed. Cruz Scott, thank you for being a member for 14 months. Thank you very much for your support. I'd love to see us push for Jonathan David this January. He profiles like Wilson, much more youthful. Love the shows, boys. Thank you very much, matey.
So really disciplined average positions there. You can see from Palace, you can see exactly the fact that they've got a back three. They've got wing backs. Mateta is the linchpin. Two floating players around them. And then, it's lovely and balanced.
I mean, I expected more from Palace this season, Alex. I don't know about you, but they finished really well last season. The manager came in and he did a really good job with them and turned the fortunes around. They were playing some excellent football. But this season, it just hasn't got going for them, has it? Bad start, and then they've sort of picked up a little and then dropped points again. It's been a really strange season.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to pinpoint unless you watch a lot of Palace. I mean, contextually, they've only been losing by the odd goal. They lost by 1 goal against Forest, 1 goal against Liverpool, 1 goal against Everton. A draw. Yeah, a lot of there's a goal in it, which I know sounds stupid in football because obviously it's really important, but they're in a lot of these games, and they've maybe. Yeah, defensively, they've conceded 17 and they were supposed to have conceded a lot more than that. So there's definitely something to be had out there. Maxence Lacroix is obviously adjusting to football. And you've got Gehi who's made a few high-profile mistakes this year. Not quite as... but again, for people saying that he's not worth a transfer, he's still only 24 years old. So the experience and stuff... I think he's still fine.
I mean, Looney's responded to what I said there, and they said it hadn't gone well for West Ham either until they played us. Good point.
Well, that's down to our manager to predict what's going to happen and make the necessary adjustments, not just play a typical, we're going to be a battering ram. That's where Eddie earns his money.
Claire says you should predict a loss again, Alex, as you were cursed when you said we'd beat West Ham. Normally when you say we lose, that's when we tend to turn up. Steve says Palace lost their best player though. They did. Yvonne says best wishes for Susan and Lady Sam in wellness and healing. Good night all. Thanks, Yvonne. Much appreciated. Aaron says we thought that about West Ham. If you're not in form or can't score, come and play us. Why is it always that? I know it just tends to keep happening. And we just don't have an answer for it. I really you could question that all you want, but it's fact, isn't it? We keep on doing this. Inconsistency is the word. And Eddie's used that many times in his press conferences. Inconsistency. But he's saying that, but then we don't see any difference during a game to sort of do anything about that inconsistency. The players are making the same mistakes.
It is inconsistency, personally.
How?
I generally don't think it is.
But why? If we're winning a couple of games and losing, then winning, then losing, it's inconsistent.
I genuinely don't think it's inconsistency. I think we're trying the same thing again and again and again with similar output and results. We're getting similar XG most game. We're getting similar amounts of chances, shots on target. It's the same thing. I think we played very similar against kind of Brighton as we've done in recent weeks. I don't think there's a massive difference in those games. I think we played the wins against Chelsea and stuff versus the game against Brighton that we lost 1-0. I don't think there's a massive difference in it. The game against Everton as well. I think it were all very similar games. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes
very similar stories during those games, Alex, is the final third, is the conviction.
Yeah, well, but it's the teams that are defending against us, the teams we're playing against that are preparing better, are getting better results against us. I don't think it's our...
So is that not down to our manager to prepare differently?
Our managers needs to do better.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is if you look at Everton, Brighton, West Ham, they were playing with big, strong centre-halves who were very well versed in what they were having to defend against. which was little floated dinked crosses to the back post from Tino Livramento in the most part. Be physical with Isak, cram the box, make sure there's bodies in the way of everything. And that is much of a muchness for a lot of these teams that we've played against. We tend to, funnily enough, do better against the teams that don't do that. The teams that try and play against Newcastle with their own style, we beat them.
Yeah,
because we give a good account of
that's
ourselves.
normally the top end teams, though, isn't it? They play their own game
because we can go right. We're going to do battering ram stuff today.
Yeah,
there's space to run into, and all of a sudden these chances are converting. But then when we go and play against a team that concede their own style to just tidy up, we can't score. So I don't think it's necessarily inconsistency. I think we're doing exactly the same thing against every single team, roughly speaking. Obviously, of course, Eddie Howe and Jason Tilley are not morons. They will be tweaking loads of things, but it's generally the same attacking
stops with them because of that. Because
agreed.
The lack of changes.
I feel like we're just trying the same thing, expecting it to work against Man City, but also work against West Ham and also work against Brighton, and also. I just feel like it's the constant. It's a very similar thing all the time, and of course it's okay. Is it inconsistency? I mean, I guess it is, but it's. I feel like it's our fault. We need to We need to have Plan Bs, because our Plan B against West Ham was just throw loads of players in different places and see what happens.
Yep. Pedro says, Paul, you're correct. How is the definition of insane? Keep doing the same mistakes and expecting a different result. Uncle Buzzcock says, in my opinion, top wide players can play either side. If Barnes and Gordon want to be those players, they need to adapt. We got a super chat in from JJ12, his first ever super chat on the channel. Thank you very much. Always been Howe in, but we've played too many games like that now. There's clearly no plan B. We've talked about that many times about a plan B. Andy says, would anyone give Miley his first start? He must be chomping at the bit. But he wasn't even in the squad last week, was he? So who knows? Right, let's do this. Alex, put your team in.
You want me to put my team in?
Well, Pork Pie's been waiting all night, Alex, so let's make sure you get your team in first.
Right, so my team would be... we need to find Dan Burn. Where's Dan Burn gone? There he is. So I would do... I've just lost Burn. Where did I put him? There he is. I would do something like... I would do this, personally.
Interesting. John Adams, thank you for being a member for 13 months. Thank you for your support, buddy. Eddie has a record of improving players, so why not able to adapt to include Tonali, one of our best players? Interesting. Alex, I can't disagree with that side, mate. I think Trippier should come in. No, Livramento's played really well. Don't get me wrong, the last few games, but I think in that final third, has he... Well, Billy's pointed out a few times that, he stops and he comes back. Trippier does that as well, but Trippier plays like the triangle really well, if you know what I mean. He plays well with the right-sided player, and then, Bruno tends to come in and get involved, and we do create opportunities to get the ball in. So I just think it needs a bit of experience at the minute and a bit of leadership, and certainly we'd get that from Trips at right back, no doubt about it. And I can't argue with the midfield, because that's the midfield I want to see, and I think a lot of fans want to see. But Tonali has to be given a run in the side. Otherwise, he's never going to get up to Premier League pace. He hasn't played enough games yet. He's got to be involved. And the left side, I mean, I think the fact is Joe Willock, he didn't really play well before he went off against West Ham. We know what he's capable of, and I think having Willock possibly on the bench may be a bonus for us on Saturday. Give Harvey an opportunity, but Barnes has to be consistent through the 90 minutes. He can't just disappear in games like he tends to do. But I think that's probably the strongest side we can put out.
Well, I mean, the reason for some of my changes, I think Trippier would get a bit more out of Fabian Schär. I think Trippier is one of the only people in the side happy to go, oi, dopey,
Pull
pay
your finger
attention
out. Yeah,
to Fabian Schär. I don't think
yeah.
anybody will do that. Maybe Dan Burn might do it to him, but
Mhm.
Fabian Schär sometimes is falling asleep. And I appreciate, 200 appearances for the club and stuff. Fantastic, Fab, mate. But switch on, mate, because you got red carded. You've conceded a bunch of goals. You've made a load of mistakes. Your long balls have been a little bit wanting. We love you. You've been fantastic for the club. You need to switch on. We need you this season because Kraft is injured. Lascelles is injured. We didn't buy a new defender. We need Fabian to give us a bit of a swan song. We need this season to be solid from him. So I think Trips is the guy to make Fabian play a bit more, maybe have a bit more protection. He's got a bit more of a cool head, even though Trippier's not as fast as Livramento. Trippier's very experienced.
Right, I can read the game.
Help us a little
that
bit
makes
more.
a big difference.
Well, it will help us in build up as well, because I think having Lewis, Hall, and Trippier, I think we can build up from both sides. Hall building up with Bruno will work really well. Hall building Trippier building up with Tonali would work really well, and Schär. I think we've got enough technicians on there to really build out, enough physicality. I wouldn't do a whole Joe Linton as a 10. That's not what I'm suggesting here. I'm suggesting that it's Bruno with Tonali are the two deeper ones, and then Joe Linton can go and join attacks, but then join the midfield
side,
so we don't get overrun. Yeah, on either side. But then Bruno and Tonali need to be working together to
but you mentioned there, Alex.
Sits.
Yeah, you mentioned the midfield there, and there's creativity in that midfield, but there's also physicality, because Tonali, as good as he is on the ball and a technician on the ball, he loves to get stuck in as well. He loves the physical side of the game. We've seen that many, many times. Joe Linton does and Bruno does. So we've got creativity as well as physicality, which I think makes a big difference, because Longstaff might bring a bit of physicality, but certainly not creativity. And that's probably the difference that Tonali can make, providing he's given a run in the side, in my opinion. John says, if Isak slows down like he does, give Asula some more minutes. Not going to happen, mate, now that Wilson's fit. I think, we'll see probably a lot more of Wilson now and a little bit less, even less of what we've seen from Asula. I think Asula was probably hoping that he'd see a few more minutes now before Wilson came back. So I can only see Wilson, but the positive side of it is, Alex, with Wilson back on the bench and looking back at what Callum said in that interview that I spoke about earlier on today, Isak tends to step it up a gear when he knows Wilson's breathing down his neck. And they've got Wilson said in the interview that they've got they're very good friends. There's no sort of animosity, but there's a rivalry for position, which means it's only a good thing for Newcastle because they push each other.
Yeah, I mean, Wilson's fantastic to be able to bring off the bench, 100%. I mean, he looked fit, he looked good, and we've got some pace. We've got some pace around him. Whether it's Willock, if Willock comes on with him as well, Gordon's fast. He needs pace with him because his pace isn't what it used to be. It's a decent. If we play that starting lineup, there's still impactful players to come off the bench. Longstaff can come on and be a kind of a warrior in midfield and shadow and block passing lanes. Wilson can come on as a poacher. You've got Willock can come on as a driving run kind of player. Livramento can come on and tidy things up at either side of fullback. You've got options there from the bench to do lots of different things, which is really nice. But I think the starting lineup has got a bit more balance in it. I think having Trippier as the right back will make Gordon a bit better on the right, because Livramento is not much. He's not as much of a passing right back, which sometimes Anthony Gordon will make a run, get his head up, and the ball doesn't come. Whereas with Trippier on the pitch, I think Gordon's much more likely to get another 3 or 4 balls to run onto during the 90 than he would if Livramento was playing on the right. So more for Gordon to kind of get involved with. Personally, I'd like to see something like this. I do like Willock's impact in recent games, but I think it's really important we win this. It's away from home. I think they'll try and be careful defensively. There's not going to be as much space. They play with 3 centre halves, so we need to be. I like something like this personally.
Yeah, Basil Brush says, Julie J says, what Isak on the left, he's done well there. Basil Brush, good evening, says, people say Isak has more gears in him. Eddie needs to put him in for a new clutch to bring them out now. Well, hopefully with Wilson coming back, it just gives him that extra nudge to say, right, you're not guaranteed anymore to be that number 9 starter with Wilson sitting there. Asula, I mean, he'll obviously learn so much from Isak and Wilson without a shadow of a doubt, but I think Asula's for another day, basically. Jonathan says, Sarr has a field day finding space between our midfield and defence.
Well, hence why I think we should play a little bit more conservative with the midfield and make sure that these two are the double pivot, and Joe Linton has to drop in and help. He's got to be, again, this is probably, Joe Linton's probably the guy to get subbed, in my opinion, in this game, because I want Joe Linton covering every blade of grass. So then probably Sean can come on after an hour and do exactly the same thing and just run around like an absolute lunatic. Because we need to make sure that there is no space for them to exploit. And somebody's got to drop back sometimes. Like who's going to be on Mateta? Presumably Burns going to be on Mateta. And then somebody's got to pick up this spare runner when Mateta wins a flick on, because there's going to be space there. Is it going to be Lewis Hall? Is Pope going to be there to cover on a sweep? Or is it going to be Bruno following, who's quite slow? There's a lot of things that they've got to think about here. So, you know, it's dangerous.
Interesting comment from Corden. I feel like a double pivot without a 10 is so imbalanced.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, but what can we do? We've not recruited properly.
It all boils back down to recruitment, doesn't it? That's exactly what it boils down to. But you know what? I can't disagree with that starting lineup, though, Alex. I would prefer to see that on Saturday. And I know Eddie has a track record of throwing in some spanners in the works when the team's announced. I just hope he doesn't do anything silly. You know, and
I think this is okay. There's been a few people saying what happens if this team loses. Well, I think he's less in the firing line if this team loses, because I think this is less risky. Like the media are not going to go for him for trying Trippier. Like,
it's not so much that, Alex. It's his in-game management that I'm worried about.
Oh no, I completely agree. But I mean, in terms of starting 11, I think this is less controversial for him to deal with. Barnes is quite an easy one. He scores goals. It's an easy one for him to justify, as is Kieran Trippier with his experience. You know, if he played like some really weird, I don't know, if he went bizarre and played some nuts lineup and we lost, he's going to get crucified. But this is sensible enough where he's not going to get criticised for his starting lineup. Yeah. But he's got to win. If he loses, he's going to get criticised no matter what. So we've got to win this game, ideally.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's Crystal Palace, okay? And again, no disrespect to them, but I said this last week against West Ham. If we want to be one of the elite, we want to be where we need to be, which is, you know, long-term is Champions League football, we have to win games like this. We can't keep saying, you know, oh, let's hope for a draw, let's hope for this, let's hope for that. You know, we have to win games like this. We have to perform like the elite sides do when they go to likes of Crystal Palace and take points, you know, but we need to start picking them up because, like we've already mentioned in the show, we are a better side when teams play their own game, which tends to be the elite sides in the league. We can compete with them, but we need to change things when we go to the likes of Crystal Palace or we take on the likes of West Ham at home. We need to adapt, and that comes down to the manager. And if it's not going well, then we have to, you know, rely on the manager to change things and change things in a positive way. Not what he did on Monday and just throw caution to the wind and throw everybody on the pitch and expect us to score. That's not going to happen. His in-game management has to be so much better. But look, recruitment's let him down in the past as well. You what, mate?
I did a thing.
Miley and for Joe.
It's where he played for England the other night for the youth team in the England setup. I don't think he's ready to do this, but I'm not even sure.
Well, Eddie will say he's not ready for to start a game. You know, we've heard it so many times. I mean,
I'm still not sure where Miley's going to be positionally anyway, long term. I think that there's been a few people said that coaching wise, they don't know if he's going to be an attacking midfielder or a defensive midfielder. I mean, he's really good at pressing.
He looks good attacking midfielder. I have to say, we've seen him a few times link up with Isak, haven't we? And he seems to be that number 10 that we've been crying out for. But time will tell. Peter Garthwaite, thank you for another super chat. We will never be elite till Eddie goes. I mean, there's still the Eddie Howe crew. Listen, I said the other day, it's fine. There is going to be Newcastle fans who want Eddie out. There's going to be fans who want him in. There's going to be fans on the fence. But I think there's a crucial run of games coming now where we need to start picking up points. And if we don't, then, that's the time to look at Eddie Howe. But I genuinely agree with you, Alex. I think he's got the season.
I've got a question for you, Paul.
Mm.
If we had signed Mark Gahey and let's say a first team quality right winger, maybe not necessarily as good as Barnes, Gordon, and Isak, because we don't know. We don't know what we could have afforded. But let's say we signed Mark Gahey plus a competent first team right winger who's better than Miggy and Murphy. Are we on considerably more points at this point in the season?
Yes. And I'll tell you why. Not so much for the right hand side, the right winger, Alex, but defending. I think if we brought in Gahey, and I know he hasn't been at it for Palace, right? But I genuinely believe his head was turned, and he just hasn't been right. Because for England, he looks quality, absolute quality when he's put an England shirt on. So for me, there's something not quite right at Palace, and I believe that he wanted to sign for us, and he was a bit pissed with Palace for what they did playing games with us. He comes in. I think he then gets the best out of Fabian Schär without a shadow of a doubt, because I think Schär, when you watch Fabian Schär, sometimes he parades around like he's the best defender on the pitch. And like if he's next to Gay, I think he's got something else to prove. And I think the stupid mistakes stop. And going forward as well, maybe with the right-hand side player, we get more balls into the box. We've got a bit more creativity there than what we were stuck with Miggy and Murphy. Better deliveries. And as you said, not necessarily a world-class player or an elite player, but somebody who can put a ball into the box or create.
Well, that means we get to keep Gordon on his natural side as well.
Exactly. And then with, you've got Barnes to come on and maybe even Barnes right or left during a game just to try and mix it up a little bit and change things if we needed. But I generally think if we had Dan Burn, don't get me wrong, I think we missed him against West Ham. There's no doubt we did. But when you're missing an elite player like Botman, you have to replace him with an elite player, and we haven't got that. Dan Burn's not that player. So I'm not talking a lot of points more, but I think some of the silly mistakes that we've seen may have been eradicated had we had Gay.
Yeah. I just want Sven Botman back.
I know.
I absolutely love Sven Botman. I think he's brilliant.
Well, look, hopefully we'll see him sooner rather than later because, boy, we've missed him. But, I mean, Botman alongside Gahey in the second half of the season, that would be something.
For people who don't like Gahey, I mean, Botman and Mark Gahey together would be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. But there is other centre-backs out there, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, we have to go off what Newcastle want to get. And if they want to go out and get Gahey, then I'll support them all the way. But I just think once Botman's back, I mean, Christ, Gay and Botman as our two centre-backs, that's a dream team in my opinion. And both players are young enough to be our centre-backs for years to come. Andy says, how about trying Barnes centrally as a 10?
Yeah, I mean, he's all right at ball retention when he's on the left. I mean, it's just all about ball retention, isn't it? You don't want to if your 10 gets the ball pinched and people are just driving at a leggy Bruno. Well, again, not that Bruno's leggy, just not super rapid off the mark. I don't know if Barnes has got that in him. Maybe he's quite good at keeping the ball when he's driving into the right from the left-hand side.
Yeah.
I don't think he's
but I don't think Eddie would try it. That's the thing, and that's the point, isn't it? At the end of the day, I don't think Eddie would do it. Right, get your predictions in the chat. Let's see how you're feeling ahead of the game. We'll take a look at the poll, Alex, before we give our predictions. We asked the question at the start of the show: would you make numerous changes to the starting 11?
How many did I make? I made three.
64% would make numerous changes to the starting 11. 36 wouldn't. So the years outweigh the nays. So people are wanting to see a big change. Lots of 1-1s I'm seeing in the chat coming through. 2-1 Palace, 2-2. Alex, what you predicting?
I mean, I want to predict a loss now, just because me predicting losses tends to do well for us. So,
Well, it does.
for anybody who doesn't watch the channel, I'm going to go for a 1-0 win for us.
Oh, it
Just
tends to be a
cheeky
low-scoring
little
game against
1-0.
Palace, doesn't it? It does tend to be low-scoring.
I'm going to go the 1-0 with an Isak pen.
Well, do you know what? On the Premier League preview show I did on our sister channel TTR Xtra, ding ding, earlier on today, I predicted a Desmond.
A 2-2.
I went for a 2-2. Yeah. Listen, I want to win the game. There is no doubt about it. I want to win the game. But I think the way we've been, it's just so up and down. Sometimes you think, God, we'll go out and throw a hammer aside. And I am not saying ever again we're due to give somebody a hammering, because it's pointless saying that, because every time I bloody do say that, we end up losing the game. So I think if we turn up, and I think if that starting 11 is the starting 11, I think we can get a result. I think we can get a win. But the players have to turn up. And if things don't go well, we have to see something different from the manager. We have to see something different, i.e. in-game management, that changes our fortunes and changes the way we play, because it has to change. We can't keep on just throwing players on for the sake of it. You know, a formation change or something like that, just to try and stop the opposition from realizing what we're doing. You know, teams are comfortable with a 4-3-3. Change it. You know, let's do something different. Time will tell. But a lot of draws in the chat, definitely. A couple of people, a few wins in there, a few defeats as well. I don't think anybody's sure how this game's going to go, Alex, to be fair.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were feeling really positive going into the West Ham game. You know, we always knew it was a potential banana skin, but it's just so frustrating that we were knocking on the door for the first half and just conceded just frustrating goals.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I've seen a lot of positivity in the chat. A lot of people have predicted wins. A lot of people fairly confident. And yeah, on paper and judging by the teams and who we've got available, we should really be trying to take 3 points here. But it's hard. It's hard with how everything's been so wishy-washy recently.
Well, that's it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow, don't forget, 2 live shows for you. The first one, of course, 11 a.m., which is the Eddie Howe press conference reaction. We will obviously talk about the major talking points. Has he mentioned much about the injuries? Has he given anything away? Probably not. But we'll see what he has to say. So join me at 11 o'clock for that in the morning. And then, of course, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, TTR Friday. Bit of football chat, bit of banter, bit of a good laugh to start the weekend. And, of course, your chance to come on the show and tell us how you're feeling ahead of the game against Crystal Palace on Saturday. And then, of course, 2:30 p.m. Saturday afternoon, Match Day Live, full commentary of the game from Selhurst Park, which, of course, kicks off at 3 p.m. But that is it for tonight. Thank you for your super chats and memberships. Thank you to the mods again. And, of course, Alex. And a massive thank you to our channel sponsor, Mamaru Records. Check them out if you're ever in Whitley Bay for music and other merchandise there. And if you can't get into Whitley Bay, please do check their website out. That is pinned at the top of the description. And is our second sister channel at TTR Xtra. Check that one out. Please do subscribe. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers already. So lots of football coming up away from Newcastle United on that channel. But thank you very much for watching. You're absolute legends. And we will see you all again tomorrow as we build up to the game. But in the meantime, good night.
Away the lads and lasses.
Come back and check out some green.